Well, I told you all a little bit about, let's see here, what we do. The one thing I would like to add to that is that, you know, while we've made a lot of progress and our office has grown just recently within the last, earlier last month, we've changed months, been very busy, we did merge with another office called the National Communications System. And so now we're bigger and we're better funded, and we're going to bring that energy to try to help even more. We were a small little office for the first 5 years of our existence, and now we've doubled in size, and so I would think it's you know, within reason for you all to expect us to double our capacity. And so we're looking forward to that challenge. I see you all as our customers, and you know, we go with the philosophy that every emergency starts off local and ends local. That's because I came up through the local and state ranks with public safety, and been there, seen that, and that's the truth. And so our office doesn't try to tell folks what they should be doing. We listen to a lot of your stakeholders, and we work with them to do the things that we all agree upon should be done to move forward, and a lot of that's a local public safety viewpoint. This graphic just shows a little bit of some of the groups we coordinate with. As you can imagine, when Congress said, go do this national plan, go make sure all the federal coordination is improved, coordinate with the state and local public safety community throughout the nation, and let us know what you need to get it done. Well, that was a pretty big challenge. And when I started the office, there were 3 of us, 3 feds, and I was number 3. And so we started working right away to establish some groups. And as you can see, we've got a split between federal, state, and local, and tribal. We also do some partnership with industry, but I didn't put that on this slide. You see the acronym ECPC, and that just stands for the Emergency Communications Preparedness Center. And the only thing I wanted to point out is we've got 14 federal departments and agencies working together on this issue. And that's where we identified those 40 grants I was talking about. We have a grants focus group that said, well, this is crazy. The state and locals are telling us that all these grants have different guidance. It's hard to go through different processes. They've got different priorities. Can't we work together to bring some sanity to this landscape? And so that group's been working together for over 2 years to try to clean that up across the different departments and agencies. And so they've been working together on policy issues that will impact all of us. And I can go into detail a little bit more about that. One DHS, that's just a one DHS communications committee. The secretary stood up and said, okay, OEC, my group, you're gonna run it. And by running it, you're gonna coordinate the meetings and get all the different the parts of the departments you know, together. When DHS was formed, it was the biggest reorganization of government since the Department of Defense was formed. It's a huge uber department. You have CBP, you have the Coast Guard, you've got so many large elements, and you've got to get them together to talk communications and what we're all doing. So that's what this group does. Get your own house in order, and that's what we've been working on since DHS, since we were created, to try to increase coordination within DHS. On the state, local, and tribal side, SAFECOM is a group that I'm a big fan of. The thing you need to know about SAFECOM is it was an eGov initiative out of the White House that basically said, we need to listen to public safety. These are our customers. And so SAFECOM makes official recommendations to the department and the federal government on what we should be working on. The SAFECOM Executive Committee is currently chaired by Terry Hall, who is the president of the APCO group, the Association of Public Communication Officials. And he's joined there by the National Sheriff's Association, National Association of Chiefs of Police, the fire chiefs, the National Governors Association, and there's a lot of large groups that are involved in SAFECOM. I know NECP is involved as well. There's a executive committee and an emergency response council. And so with these associations and groups, that's where we get a lot of our best ideas. We got the ideas for statewide plans from them. We got the ideas from a national plan. In fact, this is the group that went to Congress and said there should be an Office of Emergency Communications to work with everybody. So this group's very influential, very powerful, and they've kept us on target. And then this last one statewide coordinators. Each state and territory has a designated person that's a statewide interoperability coordinator. Now they vary in each state who they report to, where they are in the state government. Some of them are full-time, some of them are part-time, additional duties. One thing that you all should know about this is we've been trying to grow this community because lessons learned have showed us, and best practices, that the states that have full-time people dedicated to this issue do better. They're far ahead of the other states. They just do better. I was the first one in the nation to have this title. Governor Warner, then Governor Warner, now Senator Warner, hired me and said, here, I want you to coordinate all this communication stuff, interoperability. And that was when interoperability was a new buzzword. So I kind of had to write my position description, and it was an amazing experience. Well, now each state and territory has enough of these to where they've had to form their own council to share best practices and lessons learned across the states. We're really made a lot of success just sharing what's working in other states so we don't have to learn the same hard lessons. The National Emergency Communications Plan, I talked to you a little bit about that. It's a national blueprint of what we need to do. We had 3 overarching goals in the first national plan, and I'm happy to say that we went out to the urban areas and we measured the ability to establish communications, and the criteria that the community came up with, they did it. And then goal 2 was everyone else at the local level throughout the nation. We had a huge, and I mean huge, participation rate in something that was not even mandatory. We had over 80, I forget what it was, it's 80-something% of counties or county equivalents participate. And we've done some really good stuff. So this is the first time anybody's gone out and really measured, can you set up communications, response level communications in an event, a planned event, sometimes it's a real incident, and then folks were reporting back and they're starting to measure. So we've got an immense amount of data in your states and in your localities to say, here are the areas you might need to work on, here's where you really excelled, these are some things we observed. One of the things that's a little disturbing to me, that it might be disturbing to you all as well, is we still see that, there's a million ways to establish communications. We still see people relying on their commercial cell phones. And that's okay in a planned event, but in a real event, like when I was in DC and the earthquake happened, some folks from around the country laugh when we call it the earthquake because it was a little shaker, but so we all came outside and my whole staff was outside, and the first thing I said is, everybody try to make a call. Pull out your cell phone. Well, the calls didn't go through, and this is why public safety needs something that works in the worst case scenario. It's not a knock on the commercial carriers at all, but it was an eye-opening experience. So when you see public safety folks in these routine events using their cell phones in a disaster situation, lessons learned have showed us those networks go down well before public safety grade networks. And that's why those radios cost so much, and the system's hardened and things like that. So that was one thing we saw, but we saw a lot of progress, and I can't get into it here. I can answer some questions about it, but we usually go out and we do briefings, and we're more than welcome to do more of them to let you know how folks went, how folks did. I talked a little bit about the statewide plans. Every state has one. I just wanted to let you know that these are statewide plans where state and local public safety, CIOs, these folks get together and they work on what should be in the statewide plan. Some states it's codified. Some states there's an executive order for the statewide plan. Some states there are a lot more folks involved in the planning process. In some states there's not enough. And that's where we need you all's help, because the biggest gap we have are our local elected officials really understanding some of this complex stuff, why we go left versus right. And we were talking before the panel kicked off that many of my peers are radio engineers. And so when they try to explain this to you, they go all engineering and they come up with all these terms and all of these buzzwords, and it gets complex very quick to even people in the industry. Sometimes we'll have to stop someone and say, well, what's that acronym mean again? Because I can't remember. You're spitting out so many of them. And half of my job is to translate it into English. I mean, it really is. I'm not an engineer by trade, but I understand it, so I will take that and then say, okay, how can we give our elected officials a one-pager on why this is important or why they shouldn't think this. And so that's what our office tries to do. But so we've got these statewide plans, and we do workshops every year across the country. And we did 38 workshops this year. And we've done, we had 781 total participants in these workshops. And this is where fire will sit across the street, or across the table, excuse me, from law enforcement, and they actually agree on more than they disagree. I mean, yeah, it's amazing. You have state agencies sitting there with locals, and they all agree that these things are important. Now, they don't agree on everything, but they agree on most of the things on these plans. I was just in Alaska. I was telling John about 3 months ago, I think it was, working on their statewide plan. I got to meet a lot of their stakeholders. I mean, these things are really worth their weight in gold. And if you don't know about your statewide plan, I challenge you to get in touch with me. We'll put you in touch with the right people. You should. They need good local elected leadership to get involved if you're not involved, to help drive this thing forward. We do workshops every year. And one of the biggest things we're going to do now is, everyone's heard probably of the nationwide public safety broadband network and the $7 billion investment we're going to be making. We're trying to get broadband incorporated into these plans. Every state's and our territory's needs are a little different. Different geography, different urban centers, different public safety needs. And so we feel that these plans should be utilized as the policy document for the state to communicate, this is what we want to do in Kentucky or Alaska or Virginia. And so we're working with a lot of folks to get this incorporated, so when this nationwide public safety network efforts start moving forward to build it, it's in concert with what we already have. You know, these things, we're not going to switch off the old systems and switch on a new system just like that. And this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, moving to this new technology. And so that's why these plans are really important. We're about to invest $7 billion nationwide. And the one thing we've learned is you better have a plan and you better have governance working on that. And I know a lot of you all do. Let's see here. Statewide coordinators, I've talked about the importance of what they do. States that have full-time statewide coordinators usually get more grants, they usually get more resources, and they usually have better success in their state because they're there to focus on that full-time. It's an allowable expense under Homeland Security grants. It's going to be an allowable expense under the NTIA grants for broadband. I mean, these positions can be supported by these grant funds. I know we have less grant funds than ever before, but if a statewide coordinator is doing their job, they should be almost in hot water at all times with their state leadership. And here's why I say that. Because their job is to bring in local emergency management and public safety. They're the coordinator. And sometimes they get the form together, they talk it out, and sometimes they have to convince folks in state agencies that the localities need something that might not be in a state's interest. Or a good example is this. In Virginia, we had localities step up because 80% of the funds had to go to locals. Localities stepped up and did state inherent responsibilities on statewide radio caches because we couldn't keep enough money at the 20% at the state level. But the locals felt that it was so important that we had 3 localities in Virginia step up and say, you know what, we'll work with the Virginia Department of Emergency Management and we'll do this because we need these caches. And just because it says only 20% can be kept at the state, let's go do this. So really these statewide coordinators are supposed to be an honest broker to look out for locals' needs and advise state government, here's what we're doing, here's where we need to go. And so a lot of them get really close with the public safety community and have great relationships that can be leveraged because 90% of all of our infrastructure is owned and operated at the local level. Then the state has a little more and the feds have the least of all. We're here to help. You all have all the infrastructure.